And I know Bill King with us from Nashville Sports Radio. More of a beer guy, more of a beer guy for certain. But Bill, I look here that you've purchased a vodka that I think is pretty darn good, but you only bought it because of the name. It's called Effin' Vodka. It's fun to order something like that. Have you tried this yet?
I have not, because it's for display only, and I bought one called Mofo, but it's Maufaux. I don't even know what that is, but it's on the bottle.
It's obviously made in Louisiana and used in hurricanes. Yes, must be used in hurricanes. So I got an idea for you then, Bill. Next week I'm coming to Nashville for the SEC women's basketball tournament. If this effing vodka is just for display, why don't you empty the contents out in something that I can come pick up from you at some point if you can just keep
like
the bottle on display.
I'll get you a flask. Yes.
Perfect. Let's see. We were talking about there was a non-scientific poll in the Athletic online publication for SEC football fans, and they chose as the most underrated coach in the SEC Mark Stoops, and Sam Pittman was chosen as the second most underrated coach. And I think Drew made a really good point. We were talking about this. Are there really a lot of people that think Sam Pittman is underrated now after turning this program around, or is this just a matter of the perception of the hire when he was hired?
The second one. It's how blasé and bland and boring it appeared, as opposed to reality and how well it's going. That's that measurement.
Mm-hmm. Because this is a program, and you've even talked about it now, it's a program that seems to, like, there can be a flash in the pan every once in a while, right? Last year did not look like a flash in the pan. And your base of how you turn a program around truly so that it sustains is recruiting. And the Hogs are recruiting at the level to where they have this kind of steady course moving upward. Nobody around here right now, like last year about this time, you had questions. Nobody's questioning the state of the program or its stability. And that's just, to me, that's like Sam Pittman's personality through and through.
Usually, new guy takes over, year one's better than thought. You find out if that's a fraudulent, probably in year two. It doesn't sustain. Year two, I think, is a truth teller. It's nothing's 100% as we know, but I think year two tells us that Sam Pittman wasn't getting lucky that first year in being better than we thought. And I think they look very well stationed for the future. I've got to say, guys, they really do.
They do, and but next year's another. They're always going to have a really difficult schedule just because they play in the SEC West. But adding Cincinnati and a road game at BYU and Liberty, which is a good program, and Missouri State, which is good FCS. By the way, I don't know if you saw this, Bill, but the homecoming game for Arkansas next year is not just a homecoming for the alumni, because that's the Missouri State game. It's a homecoming for Bobby Petrino too. That's going to be very interesting.
Wow. For many, many reasons. Now, maybe not as much as we thought, considering the program coaches, which is going to scare a lot of people. But, just the whole Bobby P story, that one's going to be fun.
And we're talking about year two guys here, and, we're starting to get into the season where you overhype or, underhype teams coming up this year. And one team that I feel like, and with a coach going into his second year in Beamer, that is getting the overhype, maybe a little bit more love because of their quarterback, Spencer Rattler. Do you think that we're going to look back and it's going to be they were extremely overhyped and South Carolina is just going to kind of be what South Carolina has always been? Or is this actually the two guys that can turn it around?
I am cautiously skeptical on year one being a predictor of the future. I like Shane. I've known him quite a long time, but I just don't see that working out. I like Tennessee's future better. Obviously, Kentucky's better. Vanderbilt's obviously in the tank, so there's one you've got. But I don't. If I had to bet the future, and you guys know I'm very active in the options market, I'd be shorting South Carolina, depending on what their win total is that you could bet on. But I'd be shorting them.
Mm. And some other guys that are at new jobs that have kind of been a little bit more stable and, have actually done really good at their previous jobs. And it's going to be interesting for me that I think the two biggest guys that are going to have the magnifying glass over everything they do this offseason will be Brian Kelly at LSU. It already has, everybody has made fun of the dancing videos, and Lincoln Riley at USC. Who's going to have the bigger and better year one? Is it Lincoln Riley just because he's playing in the Pac-12?
And we know he's got a quarterback.
Yeah.
There's no questioning Caleb Williams and what he can do. Now, LSU's got a true freshman coming in, Walker Howard, Jamie Howard's kid, who's really good. I don't know if it's fair to place that on him today. I'm thinking it's probably not. They've got a veteran who they begged to come back, who's really never proven anything and always been hurt. And they've got a young kid who got a little playing time as a freshman who's pretty good. But they've got to get the quarterback solved. I don't know if they have to have it solved in the spring, but it's going to determine what kind of season they have.
What did I hear from Greg Sankey after the college football playoff had to announce that it's going to stay at 4 teams through 2025? He said, we might not support the 12-team model now. And I'm not quite sure what to make of it. Sometimes I feel like, the SEC, once Texas and Oklahoma make it in here, could kind of do their own thing. I don't know. I mean, it's already the best league in college football. What do you think he meant by that?
Guys, I've given you this explanation several times, I'm pretty sure, here on the show. This is a kindergarten-level kickball argument about selection of players, and one side doesn't like it, so they're going to take the kickball and go home. Everybody wants to expand. They were going to expand in advance until the Oklahoma-Texas news. And then ACC, Big Ten, and Pac-12 said, look, we feel like we don't have much of a say in this, even though privately they want to do it. So we're just going to delay you. And that's what they're doing. Sankey's reply is his childish, petty way of saying, okay, you guys were all nice and cozy here recently, and now you vote against it. Maybe we just don't do it at all. Because, and he didn't say this part, you can't do this without us. You don't have it without us. And that's what he's saying. He's stooping to their kindergarten level of kickball disagreement.
And that's kind of not to say that I'm disappointed in Greg Sankey, because you're really more disappointed in all the other commissioners and presidents who just can't seem to get out of their own way, who feel like they want to hurt not just their bottom line because this would make more money for them, but want to hurt the fans in general, because I feel like the college football fans are the ones that are really losing because we have to sit here for a few more years and going through the terrible semifinal games that we've got. So if Sankey, being kind of who was really the one adult in the room, is now going to sink to their level, when does the voice of reason ever show up and we get these things situated and people stop acting so darn selfish for the betterment of the fans and the betterment of this game that we all love?
Sometime before 25, between today and 2025. And it may never
because they
get
have
to the
to,
level
I guess.
It may never get to the level of civil discourse, but no, they're going to expand, guys. And look, I like this. I'm not for expansion. I mean, we can't find 4 teams good enough right now, but they're going to expand. Regardless of my voice, they're definitely going to expand, and they're going to adopt, I think, overwhelmingly that 12-team model. And in the end, it'll look like they were buddies the whole time. Everybody's lining up for the Christmas gifts. That's whatever I can get out of this. I'm trying, and that's what they're all doing.
Ooh, one last thing on overrated or underrated coaches. What about Drinkwitz? Mizzou took a step back, certainly in the second half of the season last year, and his reputation as a quarterbacks guy, I think, took a hit too. Because Basilak was terrible last year, and he was the SEC Freshman of the Year the season before. And I don't think Drinkwitz trusted him very much. That's why they just continued to run when Arkansas was crushing them in the last regular season game. If you're talking about a program in Arkansas that looks like it's got a good foundation upon it, in the same amount of time, could you say the same thing about Drinkwitz and Mizzou?
You remember Lane Kiffin's first year, 2 years ago at Ole Miss. Their defense was basically non-existent.
Yeah.
Missouri's might have been worse. It was godforsaken bad. And that's a problem. They're not consistent on offense from time to time. They can be, but not consistent enough. I don't think ultimately in a couple of years that ends well either. I don't. I think Tennessee is way better set up. Guys, I'm seeing some of these early predictions got Tennessee number 2 in the East. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I buy that, but I like their future better than Missouri's.
What I would want to see, from I don't know a head coach has so much to worry about, but you want to see that the team improves in that coach's specialty. And with Kiffin,
yeah.
I mean, Mississippi did immediately with Sam.
No question.
I think it takes more time, to build up your offensive line. But I think from year 1 to year 2, there was a notable improvement in the offensive line and with many of the same players. But with Drinkwitz and Mizzou, like that offense just took a big step backwards.
Guys, through the years, I have developed a theory that it's a lot harder to build up a beat-up defense, which Ole Miss did, which is rare, than it is in offense. I think you can overachieve with offense more than you can defense. And I think when you're down personnel-wise on defense, it's hard to trick people up. It really is. And that's going to be a problem. Very rarely do you see a school like Ole Miss fix that thing in one off season, which basically they did.
Mm. And just to go a little further, I guess, southeast in the state to go to Starkville from Oxford, with state fans watching their arch rival kind of make that huge jump with the same time that Lane Kiffin's been at Ole Miss as Mike Leach has been at Mississippi State, is it they should kind of listen to you and say it's very rare that happens and that Mike Leach is more on the traditional plan of turning things around? Because I think that Mike Leach's offensive system is getting there and the numbers are there, but it's not translating into wins. So how much does the success of Lane Kiffin, an hour and a half away at Oxford, really put the pressure on at Mike Leach right now since it hasn't translated as fast?
It does. And Mike, as much as I like Mike, he's never consistently had much defense. He had the 1 year at Texas Tech where they had the three-way tie at the top, which was the 2008 season. Mm-hmm. Then he had a really bad defense at Washington State, and then they fixed it, and it was good for a couple of years. Then they lost him to Ohio State, if you recall. But that's tough, man. But here's the thing about Leach. Leach is the one guy who can beat you 55-49. And maybe not Alabama, but Ole Miss, just by virtue of his quarterback play. He's a quarterback magician. So you have to keep that in mind, too.
All right, Bill, we'll leave it there. I'll text you to see when I can come pick up that effing vodka, okay? Thank you.